I don't know. It sounds cheesy, but I'm always like, it's such like a soul rejuvenating type of thing. It's just like
Not cheesy
really,
at all. I mean,
really
honestly,
fortunate to
like
be out there and you just overlook and you're like, man, I'm just this tiny speck in this like big world and stuff.
like you're fitter now than ever before, or what's the
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of laugh about that sometimes. Like some of our hikes that we first did when we moved here and we were crawling up the mountain, now I'm running up them. And, at times throughout my career and even in college, like got in like a rut or, just kind of, I was stuck, and kind of just felt like I was maybe plateauing or something.
Welcome all to X Factor. Simon Clements here. Today, a special guest, a close friend, and somebody who I've seen rise up the professional ranks and accomplish many things beyond imagination. I think she's only just getting started. Julianne Sitch, head coach at the University of Denver, U19 national team assistant coach, former coach at the University of Chicago men's team, where she led them to a Division III national championship. Julianne, welcome to X Factor. So great to have you on.
Hey, Simon, thanks for having me. Excited to be here and chat with you. It's been a while, even though I know I
Well, you
care
moved
of
to
you.
sunnier climates, Like I
I
can't, I
did. I
can't
moved to
fault
sunny
that.
Colorado. I
I was
know. I'm
disappointed you
sorry.
left Chicago, but also I understand it, and it looks like, looking outside your office there, you've got an amazing view.
It is it's quite nice. Whenever I feel, oh man, I have so much to do, I just look out and look at the mountains and everything feels better.
And are you still, I know one of the things I know about you, I don't know how well maybe others, but you have pursued elite athletic pursuits, distance, marathon slash Ironman, etc. Is Denver helping you towards continuing those sorts of explorations?
Yes, absolutely. It's a different kind of working out and different type of activities. I feel pretty fortunate to have like a playground to, we can bike, do mountain. I haven't done mountain biking yet, but you can bike and get up any sort of like mountain. It's very different, very challenging. Running here has humbled me big time. You're gasping for air all the time. And then you add that, Shannon and I, we've been getting into a lot of different trail runs and trail adventures. So also that, you're climbing, you're getting up to like 7, 8, 9,000 feet in a run and stuff like that. So that just in general is a different type of extreme workout, I guess you could say. I feel like every time I travel to some place where there's no elevation, I feel super fast, which is really
Yeah,
cool.
that's what I was wondering. Have you done any like tests on like VO2 max endurance stuff? Are you feeling like you're fitter now than ever before, or what's the
Yeah, it's interesting. We kind of laugh about that sometimes. Like some of our hikes that we first did when we moved here and we were crawling up the mountain, now I'm running up them. It's like before we had to stop when we were walking up them, and now it's like, oh, we're running up them. So I definitely think fitness for sure has changed a lot. Like I said, running here is a little bit more challenging, but you go back to non-elevation things and you're like, oh, I feel incredible. So but yeah, we're enjoying it. It's fun. You get to hike, the trail running, like I said, and just you can really do anything and everything. I went on a hike this morning before work, which is like I'm just gonna drive 10 minutes down the road and go for a hike and kind of have that morning solitude to yourself and just being able to like be alone with nature. I don't know. It sounds cheesy, but I'm always like it's such like a soul rejuvenating type of thing. It's just like
not
really
cheap at all?
really
Honestly,
fortunate to be out there and you just overlook and you're like, man, I'm just this tiny speck in this like big world and stuff. So I think I don't know, it's really refreshing to just get out. And, Shannon and I are doing her second ultra, my first ultra marathon in May.
I was going to ask, what's the next big event? So an ultra?
Yeah,
Can you
we're pushing
please
to that. And
tell
then,
the audience what is an ultra? Just because I think that giving people context for this sort of thing is helpful. That is not a word to be thrown around lightly. What does it mean?
so the ultra is about 30 miles, 30, 31 miles. And then we are hopefully completing Leadville 50 miler, which starts at 10,000 feet elevation and you climb to about 14,000 feet elevation for a 50 miler trail race. So both of them are trail races. So really excited for that. Like I said, Shannon had completed her first one last year. And I think I did the half marathon of it. And then this year we decided to go big or go home.
Wow. Now, Leadville, I feel like that's a famous one written in a lot of like running, and there's books that cover this specific race. Is that right? Is that the one?
Yes, the Leadville 100. Yeah, that one is. Yeah, that
Have
one
you
is good.
have you read that book, Born to Run?
Yes, I have actually.
So
It's amazing.
yeah, like for our audience, you should go buy this book. It's about these runners in Mexico who run barefoot and like crazy distances. And then it's got sort of a counter just about why we run as humans, etc. Really awesome. But the race that Julianne's talking about is featured in that book as one of the sort of like peak endurance races that people take on.
It is definitely a different challenge for sure. So it's been fun though. We enjoy it.
What about your morning routine? So you just mentioned you get up, you're getting for a little Zen in the morning. Is that a normal thing? What are you eating for breakfast? How are you powering this sort of like, I mean, the calorie burn on these things must be nuts. So
yeah. I love the morning. The morning is like my time. Like nothing excites me more than just kind of waking up and having time to myself. I go through a couple different like routines and different phases of routines, but pretty consistently a 5 a.m. or wake up. I love being up early and just having that calmness. No one can bother me, time away from my phone. But I'll go through different phases of potentially journaling or reading books. I really enjoy motivational or self-improvement books in the morning. That's when I'm most like alert and ready. So I will read even if it's 10 minutes or 30 minutes, I'll kind of do that. Have a cup of coffee and stuff and just chill with Moose on the couch. Moose and I cuddle on the couch in the morning with the fireplace on. So that's like our morning routine. And then morning workout. I love morning workouts as well. I think it's just a great way to start the day. It motivates me. It puts me in like the right headspace, the right mindset for the day. I feel good. I feel confident. I feel ready to kind of tackle anything. So, again, that just kind of depends on potentially what workout I'm doing. So it's either a lift or it's a run or it's a walk, hike, things like that. Kind of just depends on, if I'm training for anything. And like breakfast wise, again, I kind of go through a couple different phases, but it alternates between like eggs and oatmeal. I would say those are the two. But I pretty much have about 2 to 3 breakfasts. I like to eat.
Now, are you into the protein powder supplement game? That whole world, is that something you're embracing, or because it's all the rage? You can do it at Costco now, so I feel like it's on the table.
It's all the rage. I did jump on the whole creatine bandwagon. I started that about a month ago, and then I'll do like protein, potentially a protein shake, especially after like a long trail run or anything. I try to get something in my system within like 30 minutes of like finishing a workout, just to help with that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Just like I said, just started the creatine and do protein powder mostly after like big workouts and stuff. But yeah, those are pretty much the breakfasts that I do. I love Elizabeth's granola. For anyone who has not had that, the original Elizabeth's granola is.
Wait, is that a Denver thing or is that a?
No, it's like I think you can get it at like Target, Whole Foods, Costco sometimes has like the big bag of it, but like that is literally a staple for me in the morning.
Oh, I love it because my breakfast is now I have fully folded to Greek yogurt, protein powder, creatine with a granola mix and some fruit, and that's like I'm locked in. Like that's, and it's the best. I feel the best after a lift when I do that. And you know what I mean? It's just like, I don't know, energy and just feel good. So Elizabeth granola.
Granola. And it's the sea salt dark chocolate one is really good. That one you could just eat by the handful, but the original one is just like simple. Like I love it. I put banana, I put that on it, and then I use honey. That's like my first breakfast that I have. And then so
now, do you think like, as obviously you've been an athlete your whole life, and you've been, you were a high level high school, high level college, then you went professional soccer, and now you're doing these sort of intense endurance and sort of like longer, more mental straining, I guess, sort of activities. Have you noticed, like, do you feel like the information and understanding you have of your body and your diet is better now than ever before? Or because as you were a professional athlete, obviously you would have had nutritionists supporting your workouts, etc. during those times. Like how does that compare, or is it just like a lifelong journey of figuring it out?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I feel like I'd have to really like think and dive into that because I think when I was playing, we didn't have all those resources. Like it was carbo load, carbo load, carbo load. Like that was like the biggest thing that I feel like we were always told was to carbo load. I would say it wasn't even really until, if anything, my last year of playing professionally where we had a nutritionist. And I think that was like very limited. So I didn't have those resources. I didn't have a nutritionist like helping guide us in what we should be eating. I think I did a lot of own like research on my own about like what could help fuel me, what should I be eating and what could I be doing. We had information given to us, but I never had anyone sit down with me was like, hey, this is what's going to work best for your body. I think I was pretty in tune with my body and with myself of like what I needed. Like I was an athlete that like I needed to like eat a bigger meal, have another something before a pregame warm up. I ate again at halftime and then I needed to eat right away after. Like I knew that I needed that feel. Like I could feel my body like bonking or not feeling at my best and stuff. So like for me, like even if it was a bite or two of a bar before I played and then again at halftime, ate things and then, again after. And I think then when I got post soccer and got into like triathlons, I had people that had done them before that were kind of like more keyed in about like, hey, this is how you have to help fuel yourself because you will not last 5-6 hours, right? It's way longer than a soccer game. And so I think too, it was not like trial and error, but I did really have to try to find like what worked best for me. So like in triathlons, it was advised for me to, on the bike, drink every 15 minutes, eat every 30, because you want to stay ahead of your nutrition. Like you can't, it's really hard to try.
Oh, once
you dip in like trying to make that up. So you try to like always stay with that. And that is something that worked really well for me. Like I ate drink water every 15 minutes and ate every 30 to 45 minutes is really like my range. And that carried on with me in like even marathon training. And especially now in trail racing, like to your point, like you burn way many more calories than you do just like, road running. And so also just I've stuck with the plan of 15 minutes, like even if I'm having a sip or two of water, and then also like eating every 30 to 45 minutes. And I'll do like goos. I'll do like that's it bars. I do like waffle stingers. And some of the big long trail races. I started eating Pop-Tarts. Shannon eats Pop-Tarts. Shannon can eat anything that she wants, like on a trail race. And I'm more like, she will eat like Oreos and marshmallows and this and that. And I'm like, oh, I have to have my organic, jelly or whatever stuff. So like her, I are very different in that way. But like, I think I just did a lot of research with it and, that trial and error and really staying like in tune with like what my body needs. So, like getting older, things change and whatnot. But I would say that I try to do a lot more of my own research playing because I didn't have what the players have today. Like even our team here at DU, like they have like a nutritionist that, that can help. I didn't have those resources in college and stuff. So that's kind of like how, I got into it. But I love nutrition or eating healthy and trying to feel myself at the best. Like it's where I feel my best to be able to perform. So,
well, I'm just curious because I actually, you're somebody who's really pursued athleticism again throughout your life. You found different avenues to sort of pursue that, which means you're having a continued dialogue with yourself about like, this is what I need. This is the fuel that makes me feel better. This is what training looks like over time as I move towards a goal or whatever. And I guess with that knowledge, I'm sort of curious about how does that inform your coaching of your players who are coming in? Obviously the shift from high school to college is a huge, not only, physical shift, mental shift, etc., but a big part of feeling good is actually your diet and, making sure that you're not if you're physically exhausted, likelihood that your depression is going to go up, your inability to deal with stress. I mean, all that can be really thrown off if you're not handling the dietary needs. So especially in women's sports, I'm actually really curious, how do you guys talk about it? And how, what support mechanisms do the players have that you feel like are things that, as you said, you didn't have a lot of when you were a player, but now maybe they're much more there.
Yeah. I mean, I steer towards like our athletic trainer and our nutritionist, like to really guide those conversations. They're the experts. They're the ones in it. They have studied it. They know. So they do help too and say, hey, we need to make sure we're eating at these times and different things like that. So I definitely take their lead on that. And I err way more on the side of like healthy. Like I want our athletes to be able to feel good and feel healthy and feel like they're feeling their body and like the way that makes them feel the best as well. So definitely, we're getting the kava, we're getting the sweet greens, we're getting the modern market. Those places maybe not are known to everybody, but they're healthier, like fast food options on that end. And, I really do look at pieces of that. And also like they get chocolate, they get candy, they get cookies, they get ice cream, like I also think there's a huge balance to that stuff and like not depriving our athletes to that stuff at all. Like I love cookies. I want a cookie after a game and stuff. So it's like, I think just like really having that balance, but really leaning on our nutritionist and our athletic trainer in terms of like helping us guide and making sure that we are getting all the proper snacks and fuel that our athletes need. And I err a little bit more too on like, okay, when I was an athlete, I needed this. So I really try to make sure that like we have all the proper snacks at halftime. We have these things where whether athletes need them or use them or not, they're available and they're there. And so that they have those options or snacks in the hotel and stuff like that. So they're not going in between meals without having another sort of like supplement for them.
Interesting. Yeah, I can imagine that, with a college team, especially, a lot of it is just making sure that resources are available and then having an open dialogue about it. Something that you feel like the players participate in or that they are, interested in, or is this something they want to avoid?
No, they definitely talk about it a lot, and they're open about it and try to really like help each other too in terms of, if anyone has questions or needs it, like they also try to like share maybe their experiences like, oh man, yeah, I found out like I need more to eat and stuff, and just trying to help each other in that way. So no one feels like they're bonking or that they're left on their own and stuff on an island with that. So yeah, they definitely are open to it. And I think, our team is pretty like, they want the healthy options. They want to eat healthy. They want to feel good and feel like they can perform at their best.
Well, speaking of team building, I have been watching the news recently, and this weekend we celebrated two new national champions in college basketball. I know it's a different sport, but on I think it was Sunday night, the UCLA women won their first national title with 6 senior starters who scored all the points. All of them came through the transfer portal. And then on Monday night, the Michigan Wolverines won the national championships and for the men, and all of their kids came to the transfer portal. Now, these are, obviously Power 4 major conference schools, but I think that there's a major trickle-down effect. And I'm kind of curious, you're somebody who you've been involved. I mean, you've been a college coach now for a head coach. Is it 8 years, 7 years? Head coach?
4 years. I think
4 years, U Chicago plus Denver, 4 years. And then before that, obviously U Chicago assistant. Is there another?
Yeah, just been in the college. Was at U Chicago for a couple of years on the women's side, a little bit with Red Stars as an assistant coach, and then college, but only about 4 years as a head coach.
Point of getting this is just, you're a younger coach. I see a changing of the guard happen. The recent national champions in the major sports, the guy at Michigan's been there for 2 years. The Kurt Signetti at Indiana was there for 2 years. I think that the rules and the engagement of the way coaches are working, building programs, developing players, with NIL and the transfer portal, the game has just changed. And so I'm just kind of curious in this modern environment, what's your initial take on that? Do you see, how is that impacting your work, your recruiting? What are your thoughts on these? Because I think it's a paradigm shift. Like, I just think that the world's changed. And so as a coach, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has changed. It's something that, I think every coach is talking about. I think regardless of any sport, I'm sure that basketball is having numerous conversations around this because I think them and football probably has hit a lot harder. I think it's definitely hitting women's soccer a lot more now with that as well, and other sports in general. So yes, to your point, like it is changing. Whether you like it or not, or where you fall on that, like it's changing. And I think for myself, like I have to be better and move with the times because it's our reality now of that happening. Players are going to come into our program as transfers, as we've had a few, and players are going to leave our program and go find a new home, which some have. And so, it's It's happening, it's changing. And I think in the beginning, I was probably more resistant to it or had a harder time with it because it's not something that I experienced as a student athlete. And so I think for myself, like I've had to change and evolve, and I've had to look at my recruiting to be differently so that I can stay competitive and that I can continue to, keep Denver at a high level that the program has always been at. And so I'm trying to find those different ways to navigate and to have that. It makes me sad when players leave, obviously. Like I love my athletes and I want to see them be successful. And, I'm grateful for all of them that I've left. Have found great homes and are doing really well and are being successful in those places. And that's ultimately what I want to see with them, right? I want to see them be successful and, find that next place that is the best fit for them. And like I said, we've brought other athletes in that, have done really well for us too. So it is the change. It's what's happening. And, like you kind of talked about the culture aspect to it. It does change things, and it changes recruiting, because not only are you recruiting with the transfer portal, you're also recruiting for women's soccer, teams are capped at 28 players. And so when you have players that leave your program and you're looking to bring new players in, it limits opportunities for potential. Like if we're right now recruiting 2027s, it limits potential spaces for those 2027s to come into programs, right? Because if I lose two seniors that we're only going to have 1 year left, but I bring in two players that have 2 to 3 years left, well, now that's limited spaces for the incoming players that you are now recruiting. And so I think that's like the switch and where I think you're navigating your roster, because you need potential athletes to fill in for next fall. We have athletes that are coming in from 2 years from now. And so how do you navigate that? And so I think that's, just some of the challenges that coaches face all the time, is because you can't wait 2 years for an athlete to come in. You potentially need athletes for that next year or now. Right. And so I think it's just changing, and you just have to find ways to move along with it, because that's what's happening, and that's where college athletics is right now. And so how can you be competitive within that?
I mean, I have a couple thoughts on this. One is I have this memory of a recruiting panel I ran in South Florida in 2012 or 13. And we had, Barry and Nova Southeastern and Lynn and Rollins, that D2 conference down there in Florida, always really good soccer. One of the parents raised their hand and they were like, well, I was just checking your rosters online and it looks like you only have a few Americans. And at the time, I wasn't really like tracking because I didn't know as much about, like rules for D1 and internationals and all this stuff. But weirdly, I'm like, oh, that was kind of like ahead of that conference had already shifted. They were like, we can get Brazilians and English guys in and Germans, and they can contribute tomorrow, and they come through a pro system, and we have lots of good game film at a high level on these guys. And those conferences were doing this. And that, I say it now, and I'm like, that was 15 years ago. And so one thing that I guess I kind of view this as like, oh, well, that's really kind of what we're seeing a little bit, right? Like with a player that in the transfer portal, you have D1 or D2 or D3 game film that you're looking at, a high level of consistent competition that you're able to scout, versus high school film or club film or whatever from 15, 16, 17-year-old. I would think that, Signetti talked a lot about it. And he was like, well, the reason these mid-major kids came and made an impact in the Big Ten, and nobody knew about them from the high school film, but I was able to go and watch them in, mid-major conferences, whatever. And they do great. And they're the top players there. I know they have the work ethic. I know they have the habit. I know they understand the speed of the college game. And now I'm plugging them into a spot on my roster. And I have a much better sense of what I'm going to get out of that, which is a very different thing from putting a 17-year-old in. So just kind of like, I hear that in the media. I wonder, as you do build teams, is that something that you just think, I just can't imagine it's not an advantage to have like reps against high quality competition and growth?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Because you already know how they've performed in a college environment, being a student athlete with the demands of not just as an athlete, but the demands in the academic as well. And so, yeah, it is a huge advantage for, programs to be able to pick up, or they know like, well, this kid has been competing and been in this top environment for X, Y, and Z for how long, or competing against these athletes. they can come in here right away, and I know that they'll be able to step in and be an impact for us. And I think that it is 100% an advantage.
Well, so, I mean, I guess what's interesting to me, obviously, the 28 roster spots is a huge shift. That just took away spots, period. Like, straight up, that those spots aren't there. Less players dropping out of the sport as older players because of the transfer portal. Do you think that there's a percentage that are just like, yep, they would have quit soccer, but now they're just moving? Or is that a relatively small number?
That's a great question. I honestly wouldn't know that answer. I don't know.
Well, the reason I'm asking is from a high school perspective, I'm actually wondering, I think that because there's a trickle-down effect here. D2, because I'm seeing these guys. I'm an Iowa basketball fan. Bennett Sturtz started his career at a Division II program in Missouri. He's going to be an NBA lottery pick this year. We had him on our team this year. He took us to the Elite Eight. This is a kid who would never have accomplished any of those things before the transfer portal. He started at the D2 level, and now he's going to be in the NBA.
Yeah.
And that is somebody who would have totally been missed previously. And so I wonder from a high school perspective, if you're looking at schools, are the questions that these players are asking, are they going to start to shift to those coaches? And it might not be about a 4-year relationship anymore. It might be development, whatever. Maybe you're a little small, muscular, you haven't developed, speed of game still a little high, but you rapidly improved your first year, whatever. Do you think that is something that high school players should actually view as potentially, it's a new way to climb that ladder, I would say?
Yeah, I mean, I think so, especially if like the opportunities are not there because of kind of what I explained earlier. Like if I have X amount of players leave my program and I need to bring X in immediately, but now that those players have 2 or 3 years of eligibility, I no longer need to bring in 4 or 5 freshmen. I might only need to bring in 1 or 2. That's limiting opportunities for all of those freshmen or seniors in high school that those spots are no longer available to them due to the transfer portal and due to the fact that rosters are capped at 28. So they might be looking at those potential opportunities of like going to a D2 school or a mid-major in the beginning and then doing well and transferring in 2 years. I mean, we see it a lot in junior college right now. In the JUCO. I mean, there's a lot of players that are going to JUCO schools that are very, very good playing and then going somewhere else for, their last 2 years. I mean, that we're seeing that, big time and stuff now with the transfer portal and being able to do that stuff. So yeah, I think the opportunities are different and potentially laid out differently. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm trying to get at is it seems to me, you said it well earlier. Initially it's sort of like, what is this world? I don't like it. But then it is also here.
Okay.
It's not going to change. And if that's true and you want to be successful as a coach, you have to be candid about, well, what does team building look like in this modern era and how can I do that effectively? And I think on a player perspective, if I'm hearing you right, it doesn't necessarily have to be, you need to be open, I guess, to any opportunity because those kids are now there's more opportunities to move on than ever before. Whether you're playing, at a junior college, you're starting at a D3, whatever. What would your advice be to those players about, sort of like how can they navigate that or ask questions of their recruiting coaches to kind of get to the right place to start their college career, understanding that maybe it's not where they're going to end up. And I think coaches must, right? The coach must understand that a little bit too now in a way that maybe before that wasn't maybe talked about at all.
Yeah. I mean, that's the reality. I mean, I think that's the reality, whether we want to think about that or not. I don't look at my players and be like, well, you're only going to be here for 2 years. Like I'm still very much hoping the players are going to be here for 4 years. And that's how I'm approaching it. And that's how I'm thinking about it. Even in the recruiting process, like I'm hoping that these kids are finding a home for 4 years. Because I hope that's what they want. I'm hoping that that's where they're at, as well with that. So I think everyone needs to ask the questions. Like we as coaches need to ask the question, about like, are you looking for a 2 year and then moving on? Like, what do you hope? I think, we recruits asking the question, like, how do you guys recruit in the transfer portal? How do you use the transfer portal? Because I think, again, those are important information and, everyone can do their research now. You can go on the website and see, okay, they've had X amount of players leave and they've brought in X amount of players. This has been consistent or, like, I think they can do their own research too and kind of see potentially like how schools navigate and how they use the transfer portal. But I think just asking the questions about like, how do you use it? How do you recruit within it? Like, what are you looking for players that want a 4-year commitment? I think there's a lot of things that go into it, and there's a lot that like changes things too. Like coaches leave, are they bringing those players into
Yeah,
into
you're
their
seeing that a
space
lot.
and
The
like,
good coaches are
yeah,
moving whole teams, whole
yeah.
rosters are coming with them.
So I think just like asking the questions in a recruiting process are, definitely important.
So I guess the other thing this impacts then on the flip side, there was always some movement, but now there's going to be more movement. Does that change how you're culturally building the program, and how are you thinking about, getting buy-in early to your plan, and this is how the puzzle pieces fit, and because obviously I think you're trying to create an environment people want to stay in, obviously, right? And now the pressure seems a little different. Like you might have more of a mix coming in than you would have before, where between, I feel like the traditional thought is, oh, well, the seniors pass it on to the juniors, and the juniors pass it on to the sophomores, and and there's sort of this like ladder. But now it could be only one person climb the 4-year ladder.
Yeah,
there's two transfers coming in to meet them, and then there's a sophomore who's been here longer than the senior, and what does that all do to the,
Yeah, and I think that is a conversation that a lot of coaches have had, because you're trying to build a culture and build something that is going to just continue to go on, right? And you have like to your point, you're going to have players that go through that for 4 years and stuff. And so I definitely think it can be challenging when you have players entering and exiting your program. But for me, as of right now, like I'm not changing like our culture or how I want to lay that out or what we talk about or where we're at. Like that is going to stay true to who we are. And we talk a lot about our culture in the recruiting process of things. It's so important that we have recruits come on campus and speak, or transfers speak to our players, because I want them to want to be a part of what we're building here, and not get them here and now try to make them buy into that. And so, for us, like, yes, it does change, because you potentially have players coming in at all different ages, or like you said, you could have a sophomore that's been there longer than the senior that's coming in and only going to be here for 4 months. And so but it is like for me, like I don't want to change that. Like I want to have like our foundation of our culture and like who we are and what we are about. And like I said, really speaking openly about that in the recruiting process. This is who we are. This is how we do things. And like I said, I want players that want to be a part of that versus get them here and then try to make them buy in. So it does change. Obviously, it could be harder to really establish that long term when you have a lot of changes within your program. But that's something that, like, for me right now, like I really want to stay true to like our culture and not change that just because of the landscape. Like, I think there's things that I obviously have to move on with the, evolution and like the landscape changing, but the culture piece is still a really important part for me, wanting that to like remain true.
Well, I mean, honestly, as you're talking, I just can't help but think like the culture is still the culture. You're asking obviously a big part, and I think an underappreciated part by particularly younger athletes and families, is that it's all athleticism and technical and tactical ability, that's it. And it's like, well, that's all great, but like if you're recruiting, the women that you recruit to Denver, you obviously have like, there's a certain pool of people that are that athletic that you feel like can compete at that level and contribute to your team. It's not 6, it's a broader group, right? And then you're trying to find the 6 that come in and fit the culture so that you can start all of this work with that group. And there is an initial, like, I just think that at the end of the day, if you don't have all that, that's where the extra 10% comes from, right? It's like, how do you get the whole roster to level up? Well, if you bring in the right 6, can they, lift everybody?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm just right.
You're just right, Simon. You're just right.
I should just go into college coaching. Got it all figured out. I know how I'm going to build my team. Julianne, I'm a terrible fantasy player. I lose at everything when I try to build rosters, but it's because there's no culture on fantasy teams. There's no culture
and on fantasy teams, and you need that piece to it. But it is true. Like, you are trying to find like people that will elevate your culture. Like, yes, you want to elevate your playing and your, to help you win games, and also players that are going to help elevate your culture, your mindset, your mentality, your competitiveness. Like that's, there's a lot of pieces that fit all into one that like make great teams, And so, yeah, okay. You're right. Like I said, you're just right.
I'm just right. Well, that's par for the course. Some wrap-up questions. Give me one book that you think every high school athlete should read.
Oh my gosh, one book.
One book.
Um,
I gotta start somewhere, Julianne. And honestly, the more books I read, the more I'm like, at one point you were a 15-year-old with no idea about what you were actually trying to pursue, and you were trying to put the puzzle together. Is there one sort of like, yeah, this is just something you can digest and kind of understand maybe the journey a little better?
the first one that just comes to my mind, is Mind Gym. It was a book that was given to me by my strength and conditioning coach at DePaul. He was awesome. Tim Lang. Like Tim Lang he was the man. Like he was awesome. And he always had an open door policy. And I remember like multiple times going into his office and just being in tears or, something, just upset about whatever. And, at times throughout my career and even in college, like got in like a rut or, just kind of I was stuck, and kind of just felt like I was maybe plateauing or something. And he gave me this book in Mind Gym. So it's about like the mental side of the game and how to like work through things and like get yourself out of those moments and whatnot. And for me personally, that book just really stuck out to me and helped me because it made me not feel alone. So it's really just a bunch of like short stories about all these other athletes that, like maybe have dips in their careers, or it's like about pro baseball. Like how did they get out of their funk? They haven't been able to hit the ball in 3 games or like whatever it is. Right. And you start to like self-doubt or have all these questions. Am I even actually good? And it just really helped me find new ways to get out of my head or how to perform or, hey, I'm stuck in this moment. Here's some reset things. And for some reason, it really just helped me because, like I said, it made me not feel alone. Like, oh, wow, here's an athlete that has been in the Olympics 3 times, but they struggle and they have these, like same type of things that I'm going through. And so it was relatable for me. And so I think even more so now, I watch these young athletes and the pressures that they have from not only them themselves at high achieving athletes, but like all the pressures from school and get good grades and do this. And then they're tied to everything on social media. And like, this person's already committed and that. And it's like, I talk to recruits and they're like, well, everyone's already committed. And it's like, great, that's their journey, not yours. Right. And it's like, how do you stay true to like your journey, your process while not comparing yourself to everybody else? And I think just like finding something else where it's like, yeah, other people also are thinking some of these things and here's some ways that can help you to like navigate some of the stresses of sports, because there's stresses in sports.
Well, I mean, it's why we do sports.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, I think that's, couple thoughts. I'm very familiar with Mind Gym. I think it's an excellent suggestion, mainly because I think as a young athlete, it can be intimidating if you're looking at books that are like this. And you pick up Mind Gym and it's just like, you said you had a 10-minute reading ritual in the morning. And I'm going, Mind Gym's a perfect 10-minute reading ritual book. You just get up and just crush a chat, 7 pages. You read somebody's story about like, I was a great baseball player. Then I couldn't hit the ball. Then I did these 3 things. And, and it's just so relatable. And the other thing it teaches you is it's just part of everybody's journey. Because I think what you're really hitting at, and one of the things I try to, when we're working with athletes, I try to talk about, just like self-actualization is a thing. Like when do you understand that you've just got this internal dialogue and you've got to participate in that it's not just one way, that you have thoughts that you don't control, and then you can choose how you respond to them. And this is sort of this very basic sort of thing where once that dialogue starts, whether you journal it or you come up with, whatever cues or triggers to deal with those things, it just, like you said, it kind of levels you out, puts you in a better mental space to perform. All things must pass. And we will see.
It shall pass too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that's a great tip to the young athletes out there. I 100% support Julianne's comment and recommendation there. I think that's a great one and a good one to go out on. Julianne, it's been so fun having you. Like I could talk to you all day. So this has been great though. And just reconnecting. I didn't say it at the start, but Julianne actually kind of half coached me through my first marathon personally. So she was like always on the phone, just reminding me that I don't suck. And even though I did it in like 4.5 hours and it was like,
which is a great time.
It was like a big accomplishment, and you helped me get there. And I was greatly appreciative of that. And it's just wonderful to reconnect. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you again for having me, Simon. It was great to reconnect and to just chat and stuff. So I appreciate it.
All right, Claudia, you can come back.